Everyone, Dr. Anand here. I want to do a video today on Francis Tiafoe, top-ranked tennis player for the United States, and specifically I want to talk about how I think unless he makes these changes to how he plays and trains, I do not think he's going to break through. The first thing I want to clarify is that I'm coming at this as a big Francis Tiafoe fan. I have been a fan of tennis for a while, and I've been waiting for an American to really break through. I grew up watching, Pete Sampras, Andre Agassi, and my favorite player, Andy Roddick. And since, the early 2000s, there just haven't been a lot of very good American tennis players who've been able to break through. And I think Francis has the ability to do that. And I love the way he plays. He plays with such passion, creativity, and energy. I just love watching him. And so I'm coming at this as somebody who wants to see him succeed. But I think based on what I saw yesterday, he has to make some pretty fundamental changes to how he trains and some of the strategies he applies while he plays to really break through. I think another thing that I want to emphasize is that at the level of tennis that he plays, at the very high level, it really is not very much about stroke technique, anything like that. Contrary to what a lot of people on YouTube write around, his forehand is this way, the serve is funky. The bottom line is, he can hit serves as fast as almost anyone on the tour. He averages about 120 on his first serve, can get up to over 130 sometimes, which is as good as anyone out there. And he has all the strokes, all the tools. What differentiates people in terms of how they succeed at the very high level is the mental aspect and what they do to prepare their bodies for the match, that sort of thing. And so what I want to focus on are some of the things that I would consider if I were him or his coach. And I think even if you're not a tennis fan or someone who's interested in sports, I think you might find some useful tools or tips from this. So the first thing I want to talk about is hydration. Now, this one may seem obvious. We're taught to hydrate ourselves when we play sports. And when I was watching the match yesterday, I saw him going to the towel a lot. It was really hot up in New York City yesterday, very humid, and he was really, really feeling the heat. Some people are more sensitive to heat than others, and I think Francis is one of them. I'm not sure what he was doing for hydration. I have no way of really knowing, but I do know that a lot of athletes, including people who play at the very high level, do not hydrate properly. And I think what they fail to understand is that hydration is actually a function of multiple things. It's not just water. It really is other components, including electrolytes and amino acids. Because the goal is to not just increase the amount of water in your body, you want to increase the amount of water in your cells. There's this concept of intracellular water that when you look at research studies, actually this is the parameter that people follow to really measure hydration status. It's this that correlates with optimal performance. One of the first very basic questions I would ask is he hydrating properly? I think this is one thing that is just a basic thing to address with an athlete is, are they hydrating with the right blend of amino acids, electrolytes, and water, of course. So that's just kind of a basic one that I was noticing. The second thing was how he was approaching the match mentally. I think there's two things I took note of. The first was I noticed that kind of after roughly the second set, after he won the second set to go even, I noticed that he began to become very tight. It seemed like he was generally playing not to lose. Like I saw him kind of watch balls and hope that they would land out. I think anyone who's played tennis before knows what that's like, where you kind of are just hoping the other guy makes a mistake. And to be clear, his opponent was making lots of mistakes, which is why I think the match was really frustrating, because I think it was very winnable for him. But at some point, his mind switched into a mode of trying not to lose rather than trying to win. And so what can you do about this? How do you enter into that mindset of wanting to win and really pushing yourself to do so? Novak Djokovic is probably the best, better than anyone, not just in tennis, but in sports, at doing this. And so the question is, well, what can you do to do that better? And it's not just, telling yourself or hyping yourself up, or it's not just reading books and that sort of thing. There is a biology to this. A lot of it has to do with the balance of brain waves that we have in the brain, and are those brain waves adequate in the parts of the brain that correlate with motivation and focus. Before, about neurofeedback is a really useful tool to help athletes, or really anyone who needs to perform, do so better. Neurofeedback is absolutely something I would work with Francis on, because he needs to dial himself in better, because he has all the physical tools. He just isn't able to organize himself mentally in key parts of the match. So that would be the second thing that I would propose from a mental standpoint. And the third thing relates to regulating his mood, regulating his sense of calmness, and his ability to approach the moment with poise, especially in the second set when he was getting broken and had opportunities slip through his grasp. I could tell that he was getting frustrated, and I think his body language gave that away. One of the most effective tools to control that is something called heart rate variability training. Heart rate variability training is all about mediating and controlling the autonomic nervous system, which is really what sets the stage for how we process different types of stress. And from what I saw yesterday, I think there's definitely some work to be done there. This would be a third type of training that I would recommend. It's really easy to do. You can do it in a matter of 10 minutes a day. Being consistent about it and working with somebody who knows what they're doing, you can have some pretty significant results over the course of time. So those are three suggestions I would have. He has tremendous potential, but I think he really has to get these mental and physical aspects down. I'm not sure what he does with his coaches and his training staff, but I think this is the part that really needs to be focused on. And I'll probably do a video on this at some point. Novak Djokovic is probably the best of anyone in terms of focusing on these things. He really optimizes physical and mental performance in ways that I think most do not. Some people are skeptical about some of the stuff that he does. I don't know about a lot of that stuff, but I do know that he really tries to take every advantage he can find, which I think is really what it takes to succeed in the way that he has. So anyway, more on that in a future video, but otherwise, thanks for listening. Francis, if you watch this, I'm happy to help you. But otherwise, stay tuned for the next one.